guys already know this is the main one tapping in all the way from H-Town, Houston, Texas. I'm here with my boy T.A.G.
T.A.G.
T.A.G sucks.
T.A.G, very nice, very evil.
T.A.G's gonna kill you.
That's T.A.G shit.
Whose house? T.A.G's house, baby.
The only thing we're gonna do is take over, baby.
Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Free fall as I die through the kaleidoscope in my mind. No rope up to climb. Gotta remind myself that I'm fine. Mama.
What it is, what it was, and what it do, Tag Nation. It's your boy Scoot BK. Yep. Taking a reference off of HBK. And welcome to another episode of NXT.A.G. Now, let's go ahead and get in it. So, at the beginning of the show, Shawn Michaels pretty much did an announcement on Instagram, and they ran it back that the first PLE in the CW era will be the Great American Bash, June 28th, 6 p.m. And they're giving it that special start time because, you know, when that 9 o'clock hits, boop, news. So they're letting it start at 6. That way it gives them roughly a 3-hour buffer to kind of, you know, get the show off. And so now, with that being said, we're kind of slowly building our way to the Great American Bash because it's the first one on the CW. So you know they're going to have to show up and show out to make it worth it. You know, but the show does open up with a grudge match of some sort. You got Lizzie Rain taking on Zarya. Lizzie had a NXT Women's North American title shot. Of course, it was a losing effort to Tatum, and Zarya has been kind of just being the bully. And she's been pretty much beating up on Zarya and Tatum. So now, you know, Zarya has been beating up on Lizzie and Tatum. Zarya should not be beating up on herself. But so this is pretty much a culmination of Lizzie like, hey, I stands all I can stands and I can't stands no more kind of energy. So this was a good back and forth between the ladies. Like, I personally was not mad at this match at all. Like, at all. I was not mad at this match. And I like the back and forth, even though you can kind of gauge who was going to be the winner if you're really being honest. But I really do appreciate the back and forth and the true athleticism in the way this match went. Midway through the match, Tatum did come out. And but ultimately Zarya hit her F5, gets the dub. And then she was going in to beat up Zarya some more. And Tatum was like, hey, I know what you want. You don't even have to do all of that. I will give you your title match. So next week, NXT, Tatum, Zarya for that championship. Wait, did they officially announce it? I may be putting the cart before the horse. I can't remember now. They may have announced it as going to be Tatum and Zarya for the NXT North American Championship. But more on that scenario and situation later. Next, we do get a segment of Dorian Van Deu back there talking with Sean Legacy. You know, they're discussing their whole time limit draw that they had. And they're just talking, and then Tavion and Miles show up, and pretty much they're fired up at their match with the Cullen that they have tonight. And Sean and Dorian was talking about running their match back since it went to a draw. And Tavion was like, what y'all really need to do is go ahead and form that tag team and just do the damn thing. And then Miles and pretty much all 4 men leave. And then we see the Cullen coming up behind because the Cullen are still talking about the aspect of when they took out OTM and them being unhappy with Spears that, you know, he just went out there and just made a play, you know. And what happens is we are about to get that match. And right when Dark State comes out, as you can see, it's supposed to be Tavion and Miles taking on Cutler and Osiris. Dark State is coming out. And then Saquon attacks Cutler. Saquon attacks Cutler. And then they're like, oh, well, we can't have, because he attacked Cutler with like a bat or a pipe, one of the two. So it's like, well, we can't have this match right now. So they did a swerve. Well, not a swerve. They did a filler match and gave us the match we were supposed to get last week of OTM and the Cullen. So this was a pretty solid tag match. Now, what's being interesting is to say Sean Spears started the group and that Sean Spears has been moving kind of weird. You can see where Nico and Izzy is getting tired of Spears. You slowly see that, you know, they are like, he ain't, you know what I'm saying, Sean Spears and like he used to Sean Spears it, you know. So ultimately it was a losing effort. You know, it was a losing effort between it was between Cullen gets the loss, OTM gets the dub, and you know, Izzy and the Spears are kind of standing over Spears, kind of looking at him in like disgust and disappointment. Then we get a segment with EK Prosper talking to Tate Wilder. Of course, Tate Wilder is still the new young gun rather, and you know, he still hasn't found his full footing. Hold on one second, y'all. Sorry about that. You know, he still hasn't found his full footing in NXT yet because, you know, all of his matches has been in losing efforts so far. And EK was pretty much kind of telling him, you know, just keep at it, keep grinding kind of energy. And then Cam Hendricks was back there and Cam and Tate kind of started going at it a little bit. And it was kind of one of those where Cam was like, look, I only been on the roster this long and I'm already got a title match. I already beat 2 former champions. So you can say what you want to say, Tate, but I'm kind of doing good over here, you know, kind of energy. So yeah. Then we get into Jackson Drake of Vanity Project taking on Tate Wilder. Of course, Jackson Drake has the NXT Tag Champs with him, Brad Baylor, Ricky Smokes, and of course, Michael Lockwood. And it was an okay match between these two, but with the interference of everything, especially with Michael, Jackson Drake gets the dub. There's nothing really to go into detail about this match, like at all. Robert Stone is back there and he was talking to the Cullen about something. I can't remember what it was. And then Jasper Troy walks up. And I totally forgot what was happening with that segment. What was happening with the Cullen? I cannot remember what happened with the Cullen, but Jasper Troy comes up. Actually, you know what? I wrote the wrong team name. It wasn't the Cullen. Sorry. Stone was back there talking to Osiris Griffin. And Osiris was like, you know, Saquon and took out Cutler and boom, boom, boom. And then Jasper Troy walks in and he was kind of like, yeah, you know, y'all boys is looking kind of weak, kind of energy. And then that's when Dion attacks Jasper with the chair. And then they pretty much cut because Stone was trying to get security and they pretty much showed that they just pretty much beat the shit out of Jasper Troy. You know, Dark State trying to get back to doing Dark State things, you know. Then we move on to the Lola Vice segment. You know, Lola Vice asked for some TV time. So, you know, Lola Vice is in the ring and she's pretty much waiting for her challenger. And, while she's trying to, get some bars off per se, Kalani Jordan shows up, and Kalani was pretty much like, I don't understand how we kind of had similar career paths and this, that, and the third, but you're getting all the praise, but I get all the hate. I won the TNA Knockouts championship. It kind of seems like nobody cares kind of energy. But here it is now. You got 2 belts. You was in AAA. You're in but you're the AAA mixed tag champ, and now you're the NXT women's champ. And it's just like, where's my love? Where's my attention kind of energy? And then, of course, while she's getting bars, Kendall Gray comes out, and pretty much she's like, well, I deserve to be in this title picture too, kind of energy. And Lola kind of stands back and was like, look, I'm going to let y'all kind of handle it. And then Kalani does something. I forgot exactly what she did, but Kalani does something that caused Lola to hit the spinning back fist, but she ends up hitting Kendall instead. So she drops Kendall with the spinning back fist while Kalani is kind of holding on to the championship being messy. So, but then he, as in Robert Stone, did announce that Kendall and oh Lord, Lola was suggesting that Kendall and Kalani go at it. And I don't think Robert Stone made an official announcement yet, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get Kendall Kalani to see who's going to challenge Lola at Great American Bash, because that's pretty much where it's leading to. Then we get to the Shiloh and Tristan segment, because next week Shiloh and Tristan are going to have a pageant to determine who's Mr. NXT. Yeah, you heard that right. You heard that right. Then Tatum and Shiloh are in the back talking, and then eventually Shiloh leaves, and then it leads to Zarya coming back there and attacking Tatum. That's why I said I can't remember if they have fully announced the match for next week or not, but I feel like it's going to happen, because Zarya was pretty much saying, I'm coming for that belt. Like, no matter what's going down, I'm coming for that belt kind of energy. Then we get a segment with Tony D. He's talking with Mason Rook, and he's pretty much saying, I don't want you to interfere. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Mason was pretty much saying, I'm waiting in the wings. And then if you look in the background, you see Naraku, because remember, Naraku was going to protect Tony D until he gets that title shot. So Naraku was going to make sure, no extra harm falls upon Tony D until he gets his shot against Tony. Then we get to the Speed Championship, where Romeo Moreno is taking on Lexis King of Birthright for the championship. Now, for the championship matches on Speed, they're 5 minutes instead of 3. It was a good back and forth. Rocky still being, new to NXT. He actually showed he can hang. He actually showed some heart. Ultimately, with all shenanigans and everything, Lexis does retain. He is the king of television, as Booker T so lovingly calls him. But he does retain in a pretty solid Speed Championship match. It was nothing like really grand, really important. It was really more or less to showcase Romeo some more. If we're really being fair, it was to let people know that, hey, be on the lookout for Romeo. Whether we put him potentially in the Speed Championship brackets, or whether we may have him maybe sniffing around the North American Championship scene, but be on the lookout for Romeo kind of energy. Then we get a segment where Jada and Natty finally have a conversation, and pretty much Natty was just kind of just like, hey, Jada, you know, you have this tough exterior. You say all of these things, you know, you pop off here, you pop off there. But in reality, you know what I'm saying? You ain't really like nothing. Like, you really just talking big game. You know, you you're not backing none of it up. You know, you never been champion. You know, you saying all of this, doing all of this, but in the end, you know what I'm saying? It's just words, baby girl. And Jada was left kind of like, okay, like damn, because Jada was like, we should fight, and then Natty was like, see, that's your problem. You always want to fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, where's the thinking? Where's the this? So I wonder, is this the way of them going the way of Natty potentially training Jada and making Jada more of a killer? Kind of not necessarily exactly like Osprey and Death Riders, but something similar to an Osprey Death Rider situation where, you know, Jada finally accepts that, okay, Natty, maybe you're right. And then, you know, she goes back and retools Jada, and hell, who knows? Possibly at the end of the year, uh Jada could be finally wearing that NXT Women's Championship kind of energy, unless they, you know, potentially do a emergency call up to Jada. So I don't know. I don't know. I hope that's what it leads to, because once again, I am a firm believer of it is criminal that Jada has not had any championship in NXT. I still feel that way. And as of now, I will always feel that way until it gets rectified, you know, kind of energy. So, yeah. Next up, you had EK and Tate talking pretty much about the loss. And then Keanu comes up and was pretty much saying, yeah, you too busy being reckless and this, that, and the third. You know, I beat your ass last week, you know, and now you coming right back at it. And then EK was pretty much saying, hey man, lay off. Well, you know, somebody needs to put you in your place. And then Keanu was like, oh, it's supposed to be you kind of energy. And, you know, they was like, yeah, we shall see, you know, kind of thing. Then it leads to finally the tag match. But instead, Tavion Miles is taking on Dion and Osiris, a Dark State. And it was actually a pretty solid tag match. You know, you were still getting some miscommunications that they've been trying to build with Miles and Tavion, because, you know, they're slowly going down two different paths. You know, they're slowly where Miles is becoming more babyface, while Tavion is starting to lean more tweener, possibly heel, where, you know, he's willing to kind of do any and everything to get the win, but at the same time, he doesn't want to be held back anymore. You know, Miles has done what he needed to do to become champion. I'm trying to do the same. So however that means, how I get a championship, then kind of I'm willing to do it kind of energy. But yeah, so, but once again, great back and forth between Dark State and Tavion and Miles. And ultimately, it led to Dark State hitting the Doomsday device, and they get the 1, 2, 3 on Tavion and Miles. And then we see Saquon in the back. Well, I think it was on the platform, holding his little bat. Like I said, it was either a bat or a pipe. And, you know, Osiris and Dion was like, well, come on in. You know what I'm saying? Bring it on. Like, don't be just threatening us with it. You know what I'm saying? Come on. Kind of energy. Then we get to the main event. Tony D'Angelo defending the NXT Championship against the upstart of Cam Hendricks. Now, Cam Hendricks got this match because when Cam Hendricks and Mason Rook took on Miles Bourne and Tony D'Angelo, Cam tagged himself in and pretty much stole the pin from Mason. So Cam chose Tony D to fight. So this is where we're at. And I must say, I was thoroughly impressed with Cam Hendricks. It wasn't a one-sided match. It wasn't a one-sided beatdown or anything like that. Like, it was actually pretty back and forth. It didn't look like, oh man, y'all just threw that man in here and he getting pole wax. No, it was actually a pretty good and pretty solid match between these two gentlemen. Now, I will say this. I did not think Cam was going to win at any time. But to basically show off Cam and to let you know that Cam Hendricks is, I guess, someone to kind of look out for kind of energy, I'm not mad at that either. I'm not mad at the let's show off who we potentially may have truly in the main event scene, especially come, like the fall and winter, or, don't be surprised if, you do see Cam as a champion, maybe North American, maybe NXT, you know what I'm saying? So I can appreciate them letting Cam shine. Now, Naraku was in the audience because once again, he's trying to protect the fact that he wants to have that fair one-on-one with Tony D. But the closing moments was Cam goes outside the ring. It was making it seem like he was going for a chair, but really and truly, it was more or less him using the chair to kind of get himself up. But then you see somebody step on the chair, and it was Mason Rook. And then from that, Tony D was able to come in, back body drop Cam on the announce table, get him in the ring, hits the dead to right spine buster. 1, 2, 3, Tony D retains. Naraku gets in the ring, and he pretty much hands Tony D the belt, bow to him and everything. And they did announce that next week, Naraku will take on Mason Rook for the number one contender. And I want to say they did say that match, the actual championship match will go down at Great American Bash. So there you go. And that was NXT for the night. Like I said, we're building now to Great American Bash since we're getting our first PLE. We're showing off more of these faces that you really should pay attention to. So, and that's that. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I will end this episode here. And thank y'all for tuning in and listening and rocking with your boy. And whether you loved it or hated it, don't forget to rate it thumbs up, thumbs down. Leave all your comments, concerns, and things like that below. Let us know how you feeling about NXT overall and things like that. But shout outs to my brethren, Lip Dizzle, Jaeger Bombastic, Juggernaut, aka the Juggernaut Show, aka the Forbidden Door. Shout outs to Kicking It with Leo, and shout outs to y'all. Shout outs to y'all out there, Tag Nation, and soon to be people of the Tag Nation. But hey, love yourself, love one another, take care of yourself, take care of one another. And until next time, you beautiful human beings out there, don't forget to tag out. Peace.
Free fall as I dive through the kaleidoscope in my mind. No rope up to climb. Gotta remind myself that I'm fine. Mama.